under the chairmanship of People's Assembly Speaker Mohammed Jihad al-Laham, the People's Assembly continued to discuss the report prepared by the Budget Committee related to the bill of the state budget for year 2013. The report's recommendations included considering civilians murdered by armed terrorist groups as military martyrs. The bill also included providing a monthly allowance for all members of the military, the Syrian armed forces and the internal security forces, and applying the severest punishment on those who play around with people's livelihood. The People's Assembly members underlined the necessity of exerting all efforts to provide the essential needs for citizens, support the public sector, and reconsider the tax and financial system, in addition to rationalizing expenditure and combating corruption. One day after the visit paid to Aleppo by Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi at the head of a top government delegation, Minister of Health Dr. Saad al-Naif said an urgent shipment of medicines has arrived at Aleppo International Airport. It included medicines and medical requirements in the amount of 90 million Syrian pounds. Minister Naif said work is underway to provide a number of governorates with additional medical shipments. Earlier, Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi paid a visit to Aleppo and asserted that the government was closely following up events there. Electricity was restored to several neighborhoods in Aleppo as maintenance workshops are exerting their utmost efforts to repair the damage caused by the armed terrorist groups in the alternative electric lines which provide the city with electricity. Earlier this month, armed terrorist groups had attacked the gas station of Aleppo, which feeds the turbines of generating electricity. The Grand Mufti of the Republic, Dr. Ahmed Badruddin Hassoun, said Syria will remain immune thanks to its citizens' national cohesion. He pointed out that the campaign launched against Syria aims at destroying it. He said armed opposition groups have been selling parts of Aleppo factories in Turkey at cheap prices in a clear attempt to destroy the cradle of the Syrian industry. Syrian and Palestinian women, children and the elderly have found themselves driven out of their homes in a Yarmouk refugee camp in Damascus because of the crimes of the armed terrorist groups. The displaced citizens of the camp carried with them nothing but their basic needs. However, they remain determined to convey to the world the reality of what has happened in their camp that was once a place of security and peace for many long years. An army unit has eliminated a number of terrorists and destroyed their weapons and ammunition in Al-Husseiniya and Damascus suburbs. Another army unit destroyed a mortar gun in Al-Bahdaliya, killing 3 terrorists. The Russian Defense Ministry has declared that a group of 5 war vessels belonging to the Russian Baltic Fleet headed to the Mediterranean to replace a number of vessels from the Black Sea Fleet that had been assigned there. In a statement, the ministry said that the military rehabilitation plan covers training the Navy personnel on the air defense, anti-war vessels and anti-submarines defense system and facilitating communication and movement within the group. On the other hand, a source at the Baltic Sea Fleet staff said that vessel Kaliningrad, belonging to the Russian Baltic Sea Fleet, has sailed on a long journey towards the eastern part of the Mediterranean with a Russian Navy infantry unit on board. The source pointed out the vessel will land off Syrian shores, adding that the trip to the eastern Mediterranean had been planned in advance as the vessel was supposed to sail towards the Syrian coast after taking part in the 2012 international trainings. The Deputy Speaker of the Russian Federation's Council, Mr. Ilyas Omakhonov, has said his country is committed to its stand towards the Syrian crisis. During his meeting in Moscow with the Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister for Arab and African Affairs, Mr. Hossein Amir Abdullahian, Omakhanov said the Syrian future should be decided by the Syrian people only, and any attempt from abroad to impose a certain pattern would lead to further escalation of the situation in Syria. On his part, Abdullahian said Iran considers Russia as a strategic partner, supports the solid cooperation between the two countries, and seeks to develop it in all fields. Secretary General of the National Security Council in Federal Russia, Nikolai Patrushev, said his country was interested in stopping the violence in Syria and getting things back to normal. He stressed that dialogue was the solution and that no peace can be established in Syria without the participation of the current leadership in making it. Iran has reiterated its call for a peaceful solution to the crisis in Syria through dialogue among the Syrians themselves. Iran's stand was voiced by the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ramin Mehmanparast in a press conference in which he urged Western states, which alleged democracy and the protection of human rights, to leave the Syrian people decide their own future away from any intervention. Mehmanparast warned against the support rendered by the West and some regional and Arab countries for the terrorists in Syria through providing them with weapons and funds. The Iranian spokesman called on all parties which influence the armed groups to exercise pressure on them in order to establish peace and security in Syria and provide the appropriate ground for a national dialogue to end the crisis. On Iran's stand regarding the deployment of Patriot missiles on the Turkish-Syrian borders, Mehmanparast said all countries should work for establishing security and peace in the region. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has asserted that there is only one way out of the Syrian crisis, namely through political dialogue. It's called on all concerned parties in Syria to work on the basis of the Geneva Statement. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Hua Chunying, said during a press conference that China is open up to any plan for a political settlement that can be acceptable by a large bracket of the Syrian people and respects the Syrian people's options.